But John, thank you so much for coming out to the undisputed best section in USTA.
I'm a big, I think this is on still. Yeah, I'm a big Eastern section fan. I was a Southern section kid growing up. Grew up in North Carolina, but I did everything USTA, and I remember I was telling Ari earlier, we took a lot of pride in representing. I did, and I know you did as well in juniors, representing your section against all the other sections in the country. So, but the USTA Eastern you guys have done an incredible job, and you have made me feel very, very welcome here the last couple of days.
But, there we go. To start us off, retirement. What has the transition been like for you, not holding a racket quite as much? What's that been like?
Yeah, not holding a racket quite as much, holding babies a lot more. So I've been fortunate enough to have a big family, and my wife's amazing. But I always knew that after tennis, I was going to, of course, devote myself as much as I could to my family, which has been a fun transition. But it hasn't been easy. I think a lot of Noah, you can touch on this as well. I know you can. Athletes, not just in tennis, professional athletes in general, that finally decide to stop playing. It's a bit of a shock, really. For the longest time, really all I knew was tennis, and after each tournament, most of the times, of course, I would lose somewhere along the tournament. After a loss, the game plan would be all right. Well, how do I get better? I got to get home, and I'm going to practice in a couple days, and I start game planning exactly what I wanted to do when I was at home, or what I wanted to do before my next tournament. And when the U.S. Open ended a couple years ago for me, that completely stopped. I had no more tournaments to get ready for. I had no more practice to wake up and start stretching for. And it was a bit tough, even though I played for a long time. It was something that early on, after I retired, I think I retired in September of 23, and then when the Australian Open rolled around in 24, I kind of felt something just felt empty inside of me. It just felt weird not getting on that flight and going down to Australia and competing, which I'd done so many times. And so it took a long time to readjust that way. There were some, I'm not going to say like tough times, but there were some times where I certainly wish I was still out there competing. And you always think, well, I could be out. Maybe I shouldn't have retired. But no, I had a long career, but it was a tough adjustment for sure. I think any athlete will tell you that much if they're going to be completely honest with you. I think now that I'm more than a year into it, it's become a lot easier, and I'm getting opportunities to do something like this the last couple of days, which I probably never made myself available for when I was playing. Is something that I feel very lucky to be able to do, to come here for a few days and speak to a bunch of great people like y'all.
But going back to your junior days a little bit, starting off in the tennis world, who are those coaches, those people behind you that most inspired you?
Yeah, so where I grew up in North Carolina is where you went to college. So I grew up in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area. He went to Wake Forest. So yeah, I was lucky enough. I think I made a lot of good decisions when in juniors. I had great parents. They, of course, encouraged me to play. They never really forced it upon me. I played a lot of sports also growing up. I played baseball, tennis, and you can imagine I also played basketball growing up in North Carolina. And so then it became, I dropped baseball, then I played a lot of tennis and a lot of basketball, and I had to choose one of the other sports. And quite frankly, I did not know I was going to be this tall. Had I known that, I might have stuck with basketball, but I had two older brothers that I shot past when I was like 15 years old, and I just kept growing and growing and growing. But I had a lot of great mentors growing up. It started with my parents, and I had a lot of great coaches as well that I worked with in Greensboro. And I was also fortunate enough to have two players my same age that played high-level junior tennis. So I never really felt the need to, because I was having success in junior tennis, to leave North Carolina to, I guess, sharpen my skills and go to a tennis academy in Florida. It's not something I really wanted to do, and I didn't really have to do it because I had a lot of good players to practice with. So I was very fortunate to grow up in a time in Greensboro where tennis was pretty popular, and I had a lot of good players to play against on the boys and the girls side. When I was in high school, we had 3 or 4 of us go on to play high-level D1 tennis on the men's side and the women's side when I practiced with everyone. So it was a good way for me to I guess, hone my skills as a junior and keep a very normal life as a kid growing up, which is something I wanted to try to do.
And then going into that transition into college tennis, when I was thinking about whether to go pro or not, there was a lot of question marks. Everybody's like, what are you doing? This is time, right? You're playing professional. Why was college tennis so important for you?
Yeah, so Noah, quite frankly, you were a better junior than I was. You won Junior Wimbledon. I never won Junior Wimbledon. I never even played Junior Wimbledon. So for me, I was also kind of lucky. I wasn't really faced with a decision like you were to go to college or to go straight pro. Never was an option for me to go pro, so I was always going to go to college. My goal in junior tennis was to get a college scholarship to try to alleviate that financial burden on my parents, who have obviously, as you know, your parents sacrifice so much and invest so much in your tennis game. So a goal of mine was to try to take that pressure off of them and try to get some of my college paid for. And I was able to do that at the University of Georgia, which I think I made a good choice going there. Just far enough away from my parents so they couldn't visit me every weekend. About 4.5 hours away, just right across the border though. And they could still come and drive and watch me compete, but not every single weekend.
Yes.
So it was, I
know that too well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a good, you went multiple states away.
Not enough,
I
not
just
far
went
enough.
one. And so, so for me, the option of going pro, it was never on the table. So I was always going to go to college, and I think I made the right choice in going to Georgia. And then when I was at Georgia, that's when I started to really develop as a player, because I actually started developing physically as well. I finally started to grow into my body as opposed to growing up and more, which I did from 14 to 19. I finally started getting stronger, and that's when I started noticing my tennis game improve a lot.
I mean, if Georgia would have put that height on the table for me, I would have questioned if I should have gone to Wake Forest to begin with. But talking about the professional career now, growing up in the era of the Big Four, and you having a Masters 1000 title, is that more impressive for you internally, or taking all of them out, which hasn't been done by many players?
Well, I think when you play as long as I did, and when you get 12 cracks at Roger Federer, you might be able to get 1 or 2 wins, and the same goes for Djokovic and Rafa and Andy Murray. And by no means did I have a winning record against any of those guys, because I wasn't even close. But I was able to play them enough that I was able to get lucky a few times. But I made the finals of a bunch of Masters events. I think first one in Indian Wells in 2012, and I ran up against Federer. Okay, he's pretty good. I lost him in the finals. Then I played the Cincinnati final against Rafa. All right, he's pretty good. And then I played the Paris final against Andy Murray, another one, very, very good player. And then I think I made another final somewhere. I can't even remember it. And I lost to another good player. Oh, it was Roger Federer in Miami. And I lost to him. And then I finally was able to make another final of Miami. This was in 2018. And I didn't play one of those players. I played this scrub named Sasha Zverev. And he's pretty good. I finally was able to get over the hump and win one of those Masters 1000 titles. Of course,
easy finals.
Yeah, exactly. Easy final against him. That was a kind of a big moment in my career to win one of those big events. Yes, I've never was able to win a Grand Slam, but at the master level events, I had a lot of good success, and winning Miami was pretty special for me.
You're putting that on the table as the #1 achievement of your career, over taking them out?
I think so. I think winning Miami, I think that it's a big
just taking a title during that time.
Yeah, it's a big accomplishment. I definitely played my best in the States. I won 16 titles. I won 14 of them in America. I won 0 in Europe. I won 2 in New Zealand, where they speak English. So I kind of was a creature of habit, and I liked to play where I was comfortable. And I was, luckily enough for, knowing myself, there were a lot of tournaments in the States to compete in. So I was very lucky there. Yeah.
You're being a little humble, though. I think if anybody took a 10% winning chance against Federer, Murray, any of these guys.
Yeah, probably you take it.
You take it.
Yeah, but I think more importantly than just the wins against those guys. I mean, you've played them too, Noah.
Yeah.
Didn't you play at the Aussie Open? Who'd you play?
Fed
at the Aussie Open. I remember that on Rod Laver Arena. It's not just being able to compete against those players at at the biggest stage. When you play against Roger Federer, you're never going to play on center court. It's an experience you can't even imagine watching on TV, just being able to be on that court against them. And really, it's no pressure at all playing against those greats. It's a great position to be in. You've earned your spot to play against those players on the biggest stages. It's something I definitely miss and will remember certainly forever.
Well, embarrassing enough, my best highlight is playing you. But that's we'll save that for another time now.
We need to talk about that. Don't forget about that.
Yeah. Okay, but I have to read this off because I don't remember it. 6'4", 3'6".
Oh yeah, I know where you're going with.
Okay, I figured.
7'6", 6'7", or 6'7", 7'6". Go ahead.
Keep going.
Okay.
What was the number?
No, good. He won the first set, so I'm going to go 4-6. Right? He won the first set.
No.
I did.
6'4".
Oh my goodness. Okay, 6'4" for me. 3'6".
Yep.
6'7". 7'6". You guys know where I'm going with this? Anyone finish the sentence? 70 to 68. So 2010.
At what point in time did you guys sit down and say, like, how far can we push this thing?
We never did. We never, this is pretty funny. So we played, and the first day, we went on kind of late, and as you know, there's no lights on the outer courts at Wimbledon. So we took the court pretty late, and we played for 2.5, 3 hours. We split 4 sets. After I won the 4th set tiebreaker, it was probably close to 10 p.m. and stays light out really late there in London. They called the match, as they should. It's all right, whatever. It's just some random first-round match. No one's thinking anything of it. And the next day, we were like second on. That was the crazy day. We had, I'm assuming, we went on around like 1:30 or 2. We had 8 hours to finish one set, and we couldn't do it. So the second day was the nutty day, and then once the match got into the 20s, somewhere along the line, that's where the match started. Everyone started following the match. Everyone on the ground. We were on court 18. I don't know if you've ever been to Wimbledon. It's a decent-sized court.
It's an unusual court.
Unusual court, yes, and the press, the media is right up on top of it. And you could hear the sort of the grounds. On the court, I could hear the grounds chattering, and people were climbing up because there were no seats. Friends were hoisting their other friends up to get a vantage point of the court, and that's where it started to get really nutty in the 20s. I had a match point at about 8-7 in the 5th. Clearly didn't win it. Otherwise, no one would ever talk about this match ever again. And he could have just double faulted, and never talk about it. But wasn't able to win right then and there. And then we kept going, and and in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s, I don't know exactly what the score was, the scoreboard broke. And so it just broke. Like, it just couldn't function. They're like, what is this 50 number we have to get to? And so the umpire, Mohamed Layani, he's kind of this famous, like, Swedish umpire. He, had to start, reminding everyone of the scores that couldn't see it on the scoreboard. That was nuts. And then somewhere one of the things I like about the match is there was no gamesmanship at all. There were no injury timeouts. There were no time warnings. There were never called the trainer to the court. But at about somewhere I think 52 or 53 all, my opponent, Nicholas Mahut, he was like, I got to go to the bathroom. I can't. So he tells the opponent, he's like, I go to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, I'll go too, I guess. Yeah. And so we hadn't said a word to each other, right? We've been sharing the court with each other for 9 hours. Haven't said a word to each other. And we leave the court behind court 18. It's like they've changed it up a little bit. Now it's like a big, massive press area. But there was this small little bathroom. Then him and I just went in there. Only people in there. 2 urinals right beside each other. And I'm like, and we're going to the bathroom beside each other. He looks at me, I look at him, and we didn't say a word to each other. And that was the moment of what the hell have we gotten ourselves into? And we never even spoke about it right then and there. And we went back on the court and went about our business. Weren't able to finish. We had to stop again and come back a third day. And then, I don't know, an hour and a half into the third day, I was finally able to win that match. But that bathroom break is something I clearly remember. When we never even didn't say a word. We looked at each other and we didn't say a word. I'm like, dude, why won't you just die? And he's probably looking at me and saying the same thing. And it wasn't meant to be on the second day. And we kept going and going and going, yeah.
But I'm curious, you're going out for your second round match.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, what am I doing here?
Well, actually, because I had so much adrenaline. Like, the third day after playing all those hours, second day, the third day I woke up, I actually felt pretty good physically. I'm like, wow, I'm surprised how good I feel physically because I still had all this adrenaline like pent up in me. Like it was still carrying me so far and so long that physically I was fine. I went up right away. I was feeling great on the court. After the match, after I won the match, I think I took a big, deep breath and I sort of just let it all go. I did all the press and all this stuff. It was like a worldwide. So I remember the World Cup was going on, of soccer, obviously. And we were like the #1 headline ahead of the World Cup. And like England was playing the World Cup. You know, it's a big deal. And we were playing, we were the top headline above the World Cup. So this match just took this massive like life of its own. But I'm also told myself, I told my coach, like, I think I can be good in my second round. I think I'm going to be fine for my second round match. And boy, was I wrong. I hit in the win. I hit 113 aces, which of course will never be broken ever. And he hit like 107 or something. How many people talk about that? He had almost as many as I did. In my second round match, the only match in my whole career where I hit 0 aces was my second round match at Wimbledon. That's how bad I felt. Yeah, everything hurt, everything. And I was young too.
Yeah.
And so like, you're supposed to recover it, but I was completely shot and I lost very easily, which was to be expected. But initially, I thought I was going to be okay, but I was really, really wrong there.
And that was unusual, definitely unusual. But going to unusual moments in your career, you know, are there any things that come to your mind by any chance? And why was it me and my exploding shoe playing you
That's a good
at
one.
DC?
Yes. So before we get into that, one more point on the Mahout story. That was 2010. 2011, we're back at Wimbledon, and of course people are still talking about this match. And back then they used to do the draw reveal on the radio, super old school. They do it on the radio, and like the players would have to listen in on the radio. And so they would pull the seeds out first. I was seeded, and so then my name got entered in the draw. And I remember them saying like, "Whoa, can Lightning strike twice here?" And like John Isner, like who's going to play John Isner in the first round? And they pull, and it's just on the radio. You can't see anything. And they all start laughing. They're like, "No way, I played him again in the first round." And
different scores.
2011, and the match was about 9 hours shorter. But anyways, to answer Noah's question, what year was that? 2018. Okay, 2018. I played Noah. This clip, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's been played on Instagram a bazillion times because Noah's shoe in Washington D.C. against myself on center court there. His shoe literally exploded mid-point. I serve and volley. We were in the third set of a big match. It was third set.
Deep second.
Oh, deep second. You won the first. It was 4-all in the second. That's what it was. Sorry. 4-all. I think it was 4-all in the second, deep in the second set. And Noah won the first set, and I'm trying to hold serve to like put the scoreboard pressure on him. I think I served and volleyed out wide, hit a return, and I hit a volley. And as he's recovering after hitting the return, he's like the super fast dude, you know. His ASIC shoe exploded and like completely fell apart. It started flapping all over the place like this. You have to, the clip is everywhere, I'm telling you. It's been played a million times, 1,000 comments or something. And it was the most unbelievable thing. And here I am, like, I'm trying to win this match. I'm like, I've lost the first set. It's a big match. And like, I immediately started cracking up on the court because his shoe exploded. And I looked at him and I said, WTF, you know, but no, I didn't say WTF, you know what I'm saying? So it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. You had to go back in the locker room to get another pair of
Yeah, it was
shoes.
one of the first times that I was super nervous. I actually didn't know if I had another pair. Screaming at my coach, like I'm looking, and I'm like,
I wish you didn't have another pair. Because he ended up winning the match. It would have been good if you had to play barefoot. I think I would have won.
And so you won Atlanta the week before.
I could have given you a pair of a size 15. That
I would have to cut it in half.
Yeah, you have to cut it in
Twice.
half.
Twice. You were tired. You won Atlanta the week before, and I was like, I have to keep this going. And I didn't even notice until I took like 6 steps in, and I was like tripping over myself. And I looked down, I was like, what in the world?
The sole of the shoe was like going like this. I mean, it completely exploded. It's not like his shoelace came undone or he just like a little hole in the bottom. Like the whole thing exploded, completely useless, could not use it anymore. And he took it, and he like, because it's a big shrug, he took his shoe and he threw it into the crowd.
Worst mistake of my life.
Yeah, like somebody should have kept that shoe because That's pretty
But
legendary.
it's funny,
I've never seen that before.
I work with some kids now, and I didn't have the career you had. This is the only thing they know me for. They like kind of, like the Wimbledon. Oh, we saw you play, but like, they're like that shoe.
The shoe.
Every year on the dot, it comes up, and it's.
Now that we're talking
guy.
about it and everyone's phones are listening to us, it's going to pop up on your social media feeds. But you have to see this. It was pretty remarkable. And it actually, I think it made me sort of a lot more relaxed on the court. We were playing this big match in DC, right? And then my opponent's shoe explodes. I'm like, what's going on? So I started to laugh about it. And it's funny to talk about now. There's
so many things they don't remember. Like I was #1 on ESPN, top place the next day. Nobody cares. Nobody saw it. Nobody talks about it. That's the moment.
Oh, not
your
top
face.
place.
No. I got to a drop shot like 2 points before.
Yeah.
That's when I started actually hearing a sound in my shoe.
Oh, okay.
And that's what really brought it to. And then 2
okay,
points
gotcha.
later.
So I don't know that. Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
So you heard you heard your
something.
shoe.
Didn't really think anything of it. Something came about. I played Nick Kyrgios in Atlanta the week prior. Was actually with my now wife. We were in the hotel room, and I kind of saw something peeling off. Again, didn't think anything of it. Threw out that pair, got a new one, heard a sound, and I was like, nah, this can't be. We'll be okay. I'll finish the match. It's not going to explode.
And exploded.
And it exploded. And it exploded.
And you clearly had another pair of shoes. So you thought you didn't have another pair of shoes?
I had an old pair of shoes that I put on that I just had lying around my bag. Didn't think I had one. My coach was like trying to find, because I wasn't his size. He was not your size, but closer to your size than mine kind of thing. But yes.
But I remember when Noah left the court, I'm thinking, I lost the first set, and it's like 5-4 me in the second. I'm like, holy crap, I might win this match because he didn't have any shoes. This will be amazing. But then he came out with like this pair of like all black shoes or whatever it was. I'm like, dang it, now he's going to start running again. I'm going to have to work really hard. And I lost, so I really wish he didn't find those shoes.
But yeah, to kind of conclude here, you're here at USTA Eastern, as we said, undisputed, best section.
Great section.
But in your opinion, anything that we can add to get more players, young players, coaches into the sport here?
I think just getting, I spoke to Ari about this as well, and he brought up a good point. I think getting the parents more well-versed in our game, because you don't have to have a background in tennis to have a kid that becomes a very good player. So I think growing the game at a grassroots level and the junior level, I think we're seeing a resurgence lately of, I think, American professional tennis. But I think just American tennis in general, a lot more players are playing. I still think we need to get more players playing our game. I think a lot of our great athletes on the men and the women, they gravitate towards other sports. But I think right now what our professional players are doing on the men's side, and particularly the women's side, what Madison Keys just did in the middle of the night, incredible effort. What Ben Shelton did, these are very marketable, incredible players. And I think tennis is becoming a very popular and trendy sport again. So getting as many rackets as you possibly can into the hands of young kids, so these kids can go on to play junior tennis, hopefully go on to play college tennis. And obviously it's very hard to do, but always have those dreams and aspirations of playing pro tennis. And what we're doing right now on the professional level, I think, is really helping that. So it's up to the sections to develop the game at a grassroots level, because if you can do that in a very good and efficient way, we're going to see a lot of great players emerge from the Eastern section, not only the Eastern section, all over the country.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to go to our second part now, the Q&A. Interesting. Okay. If you had to do this all over again, would you choose tennis as a career path?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It gave me everything I have. I think without tennis, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have the family I have today. So tennis has meant everything to me. It sounds super cliche, but it taught me so many life lessons. I think one of the most important ones it taught me was discipline. As you know, Noah, to be able to compete at a professional level, you have to be extremely diligent and extremely disciplined. And that's poured over into my life after tennis, I feel like. So something that tennis has taught me, that if you want to have success in our sport or in anything you do, you have to be disciplined, you have to be diligent, and that's what I was able to learn through playing all these years.
But tennis opened up a lot of doors for you, and you saw so many different facets of the world. Was there anything that interested you, anything different other than tennis?
Yeah, well, I think early on in my career, I didn't really enjoy leaving the United States, but towards the end of my career, I really started to appreciate all the amazing places that we get to go to each and every year. I mean, the fact that I've been to Australia, I think 18 times, and I've been to Rome, Madrid, Paris, every single year, like rinse and repeat. I'd go to these amazing places and get to experience these amazing cultures every single year. Is something that I think I took for granted early on in my career. It wasn't lost on me towards the end of my career, so I started to appreciate all the amazing places and amazing people I got to meet and the experiences I got to enjoy throughout playing professional tennis for 17 years.
And a tennis-specific question here. How do you move on from a lost point? What are you doing in between those points, you specifically?
Well, I think one of the good things to do is
Ace somebody?
Ace someone, yeah, there you go. So it may be easier said for me. If I lose a point, I can just ace someone. But I think this is something I failed at a lot. But in between points, you have 20, 25 seconds. Exhibiting good body language. It's easy to have good body language after playing a good point or winning a big point. But having great body language after losing a point or losing a big point, it's sort of an intangible, right? It will help you so much. It'll help you stay relaxed to get ready to compete at the next point. So your body language in those 20 seconds in between points is critically important. Stick your chest out, your shoulders up high, your head up, and just go by ways and breathe. That's the best thing you can do. Go to your towel if you need to. That's the best way to prepare for the next point.
Given the success of players like Shelton, Giron, Mackey, college tennis, and on the women's side, we have a lot of players as well. That's a viable option, obviously,
Yes.
at this point. How are we promoting that to junior tennis players and not forcing them to go pro too early?
Yeah, I think college tennis now is more in vogue than it was when I was finishing up high school. A lot of my peers that were better than me in junior tennis did not go to college. They felt the pressure. I think perhaps they felt the pressure, whether it's from the USTA or their coaches or their parents. And they were getting some money from clothing sponsors to not go to school and to go pro right away. And you're seeing it now on the men's and the women's side, particularly the women's side. Look at Emma Navarro, Danielle Collins, both went to the University of Virginia. Peyton Stearns went to Texas. I'm missing so many. The young Russian girl went to NC State University. She's almost top 10 in the world, Diana Schneider. There's so many examples on both sides of players that went to college and are doing amazing things on the pro tour. And really, it makes sense. It's hard. You have to be very, very special to turn pro at 18 and be able to compete against the best 25, 26-year-olds in the world. Yes, Carlos Alcaraz was able to do it, but not everyone is Carlos Alcaraz. It took Ben Shelton 2.5 years to develop at the University of Florida, to get stronger physically, to practice against very good players each and every day at the University of Florida. And same goes for all those other players I mentioned that went to college, to develop their games that way, to get them ready for the pro tour. There's no shame in going pro at 20 or 21 years old. I went pro at 22. That's just when I was ready. I wasn't ready to go pro at 18. And the same is said for Shelton, who he's a great example, obviously. He's almost probably close to top 10 in the world and just a few years out of college. So college it should always be on the table for every player, especially young American players. I don't care how good you are. You can go to college, you can get better, you can get stronger physically, and you can get mentally more mature as well to prepare yourself for the pro tour. I mean, what college tennis provides is a lot of matches. You can lose, but you'll probably have another match in 2-3 days. On the pro tour, if you lose on Monday, as you know, you might not play till the following Tuesday. And that's 8 days to think about your loss and practice when you might not want to practice. It's a tough existence out there. And it's lonely when you lose early in a tournament. In college tennis, you have your teammates to pick you up, and you learn how to win, you learn how to compete. That's what I learned how to do in college, and it helped me out a lot on the pro tour.
I use one of your good friends, Sam Querrey, as the example. I think he won 3 challengers, and then he didn't go to college after that. And I said, anything besides that.
Yes, exactly. If you find yourself like in the top, Alex Mickelson, he was supposed to go to the University of Georgia. I wanted him selfishly to go to the University of Georgia to help out the tennis program there, but he made the right choice. He just was fully planning on going to Georgia, but all of a sudden he found himself top 100 in the world after winning a couple challengers, making the finals in Newport. He beat me in the semifinals in Newport, and he's 17 or 18 years old, and he's like 115 in the world. I'm like, well, at that stage, yeah, you probably should go pro, but not everyone has a rise like that at 17 or 18 years old. Everyone's different on the men's and women's side, so college tennis should always be an option no matter how good of a player you are.
You speak about weaknesses, you were speaking about in the doubles a little bit as well, but your weaknesses that opponents picked up on, how did you mitigate those throughout your career over time?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is we talked about like the body language in between points is like I sometimes I would maybe not project myself like I should. A lot of times I did, but being such a big guy, if I could project this big powerful image on the court, even if it was sort of a bluff, was the best thing to do. So to always project good, positive body language out there was important, especially for me. But yes, opponents would, when they would play me, my opponents would always have to really, really focus on holding their serve. As you know, if I can get maybe a break on you, a lot of times this set could be over because I'm serving so well. But my opponents, of course, would try to make a lot of first serves. They might take a little, even sometimes take a little bit off their first serve, and they want to get in baseline rallies with me because typically they would be favored in that matchup from the back of the court with me. So they would try to wear me out from the back of the court, move me side to side, and hope that towards the end of a match, I might get a little bit physically tired, a little bit mentally tired, lose my focus on my serve a little bit. So I always played inherently close matches just by virtue of how I had a very good service game, and my return game was not nearly as strong as my service game. So add those two things up, I played close matches. So my opponents, just much like me, if I would lose my serve, oftentimes the set could be over. So I had to focus in on my serve. That's what I had to take care of to just create scoreboard pressure. My opponents had to do that the same on their serve, but they would definitely try to keep me pinned to the back of the court and pick on me that way, and hopefully hope that it would wear on me as the match progresses.
And one last question. I'm sorry if we didn't get to all of them, but talking about your kids, any passion for tennis in their blood?
Yes.
Where are we at?
Actually, yes. So I have 4 kids. My daughter was our first kid, and then 3 boys after that. And my daughter is not showing that much interest in tennis right now.
Not the worst thing.
No, she's got to find the happy medium between like the super girly stuff she likes and like maybe like the girl that loves to play all the sports. There's somewhere in the middle she can meet. But my boys, I know, like to play. My 5-year-old, who's our first boy, he had a tennis lesson this morning. So he's going to play a lot of sports. He loves the game. He loves to just get out there and hit the ball around. And he actually doesn't mind me coaching him either. Maybe as he gets older, here, he's looking at that. Yeah. As he gets older, he might not like that. But I've spent a good amount of time on the court with my 5-year-old. Now my 3-year-old too. He's still so little, believe it or not. My 3-year-old's actually pretty small. It's weird.
Can't be. I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's like. But my 5-year-old's not, and he's hitting the ball pretty well, and I'm enjoying it. So it just kind of, it's really come full circle, right? Now, like I'm the parent, and I'm watching my kids grow and develop in this great game. We'll see if this is a sport they gravitate towards. I'm not going to force it on them, but if they want to play tennis and have tennis be their sport, I will be very, very happy. But they're going to play a lot of sports, and I think it's fun at a young age to play a lot of sports because you can develop a lot of skills athletically and hand-eye coordination by playing a lot of different sports and just going about it that way. There's limitless energy with these young kids. So get them out there, run around, football, soccer, baseball, tennis, hockey. My son's even playing hockey. So, good. And we'll see what he gravitates toward eventually.
Well, John, thank you so much. And now we got to get a rematch going on.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to win. Thank y'all.